He won the US Open and somehow ended the week more hated than when he started it. Wyndham Clark spent 4 days at Shinnecock Hills being booed, heckled, and accused of cheating, and when it was over, a section of the golf world was openly calling for him to be punished, banned, disciplined, removed. Now Clark has responded to all of it, the scandal, the accusations, and the calls for a ban, and what he said is more revealing than the trophy he lifted. Here's the full story. To understand why people were demanding a ban for a man who had just won a national championship, you have to go back to the 17th hole on Saturday. Clark, cruising toward the title with a commanding lead, pulled his tee shot into the thick fescue rough beside a temporary camera stand. Under the rules of golf, that camera stand is an immovable obstruction, and a player whose ball or stance is interfered with by it is entitled to free relief. This is a basic, universally applied entitlement. Clark took it, but the way it unfolded set the internet on fire. He cleared loose grass from the area, which the rules permit. He dropped the ball, and it rolled back toward the obstruction. He dropped again, and again it rolled back. Under the rules, when 2 drops fail to stay in the relief zone, the player places the ball. So Clark placed it, now sitting clean and playable, and saved his par. A USGA rules official supervised every step. He broke nothing, not a single rule. The internet did not care. Clips spread within minutes, accusing him of intentionally engineering the drop to manufacture a perfect lie. The phrase "going full lawn care service" trended. Fans called the drop criminal, and the noise quickly escalated from accusations of cheating to outright demands that the PGA Tour or USGA punish him, ban him, strip something from him. Quick pause. If you think the calls for Wyndham Clark to be banned are completely ridiculous given that he broke no rules, type "no ban" in the comments. If you think his history means he deserves the scrutiny, type "he earned it." I read every single one. The demands for a ban did not come from nowhere, and that is the crucial context. Wyndham Clark arrived at Shinnecock already carrying a reputation that a large part of the golf audience had decided to punish. At the 2025 US Open at Oakmont, after missing the cut, Clark damaged 2 historic locker room lockers in a fit of frustration. Lockers that were more than a century old. The club banned him until he paid for the repairs, made a charitable donation, and met other conditions. A month earlier at the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, he had another outburst. He has a documented history of on-course anger, and a parallel history of saying the wrong thing at the wrong moment, including a widely criticized birth control quip at the Masters Par 3 contest that drew an eye roll from his own girlfriend on camera. So when the 17th hole happened, the crowd and the online world did not treat it as an isolated rules situation. They treated it as the latest entry in a pattern. The booing at Shinnecock became historic in its intensity. Fans screamed for his ball to find bunkers. They cheered his bogeys. They shouted "Don't choke" Wyndham as he stood over putts. Police were evicting spectators from the grounds. It was, by multiple accounts, some of the most hostile treatment a player has received at a major championship in living memory, and it was aimed at an American trying to win his own national open. So how did Clark react to all of it? The scandal, the accusations, and the calls for a ban? His response was strikingly measured, and it did 2 things at once. First, he stood firm on the rules. He pointed out, correctly, that he broke nothing, that a rules official supervised the entire drop, that he was entitled to the relief he took and followed the correct procedure throughout. On the substance he gave no ground, because on the substance he was right. There is no basis for a ban over a legal ruling, and Clark knew it. But second, and more revealingly, he acknowledged the optics. He admitted that he would have to be more conscious of how his actions appear, that he plays under a microscope, and that what he did, while completely legal, looked bad on camera. He said he did not want there to be any question that he was trying to do anything resembling cheating, and that going forward he would be more careful about appearances. He conceded that the perception was a problem, even when the rules were not. And on the broader scandal, the booing and the abuse, Clark was honest in a way that was almost disarming. He acknowledged that the crowd simply did not like him. He admitted he had brought some of the scrutiny on himself, saying he had gotten a lot of grief since the Oakmont incident, rightfully so, and that the unfortunate thing was that the locker outburst was not who he really is. He took responsibility for the reputation without using it as an excuse for the abuse. That balance, owning his mistakes while standing firm on his innocence at Shinnecock, was the most mature public posture he has struck in a career often defined by emotional volatility. There was never any real chance of an actual ban, and that is the part the outrage missed. You cannot ban or punish a player for taking legal relief that a rules official approved in real time. Every credible analyst confirmed Clark broke no rules at Shinnecock. The calls for a ban were an expression of frustration, not a realistic disciplinary prospect. But the fact that they happened at all, that a portion of the golf world wanted a US Open champion punished for winning, tells you how deeply Clark has alienated a segment of the audience. There is also a fascinating comparison to be drawn with how the crowd treated Rory McIlroy that same week, because it illuminates exactly what kind of hostility Clark faced. McIlroy too got grief from the Shinnecock galleries, including one fan who screamed at him to find a bunker, prompting McIlroy to fire back with a mocking gesture. But the abuse McIlroy received was, as several observers noted, fundamentally different in character. What McIlroy got was largely tribal, the ordinary nastiness that comes with being a rival in a partisan crowd. What Clark received was personal. The fans were not booing him because he was the opponent. They were booing him because they had decided, as individuals, that they did not like him as a person. That distinction is what made the Shinnecock treatment so unusually cruel, and it is part of why the calls for a ban gained such traction. The crowd was not rooting against a competitor. They were rooting against a man. The deeper question underneath the whole saga is about the gap between the professional game and the everyday golfer. Many fans pointed out that the relief Clark received, the entitlements available at the elite level, can look like loopholes to the weekend player who would simply have to hack the ball out of the fescue and move on. Clark became the lightning rod for that resentment, even though he was only using rules available to every player in the field. The anger was less about Clark specifically, and more about a sense that tour professionals operate under a different, more forgiving set of standards. Clark just happened to be the man standing in the rough when that frustration boiled over. What makes the story remarkable is that none of it broke him. Clark absorbed 4 days of booing, a viral cheating scandal, and public demands for his punishment, and he still closed out the championship. He started Sunday with a 6-shot lead, watched it nearly evaporate as Sam Burns charged, and held on to win by a single stroke. He did it while the gallery actively rooted against him on every hole. That is a genuine display of mental toughness, regardless of how anyone feels about him personally. In the end, Wyndham Clark is a 2-time US Open champion, and no amount of booing or online outrage changes what the record book says. His reaction to the ban talk and the scandal, that careful mix of defending his innocence while owning his reputation, suggests a player who is finally beginning to understand the relationship between his behavior and the way the world treats him. He cannot control the crowd. He cannot stop the accusations, but he can control how he responds. And at Shinnecock, in the eye of the storm, he responded by winning and then by speaking with more humility than anyone expected. The calls for a ban will fade, because they were never grounded in anything real. What will remain is the image of a deeply polarizing champion who walked into the most hostile environment a major has produced in years and came out the other side holding the trophy. Wyndham Clark does not need the golf world to love him. After Shinnecock, he has made it clear he intends to keep winning whether they do or not. If this gave you the full story behind the scandal, drop a like before you scroll away. It tells the algorithm to push this to other golf fans following the drama. And subscribe, because there is always another chapter coming.